Hey there, comic book friends. I'm Travis. It's time for the edition of No Capes, where I talk about comic books that don't have to do with superheroes. This is books for the week of December 17th, 2014, coming down to the last weeks of 2014. Is it a good week? I think it's probably a pretty good week. First up, let's talk about The Wicked plus the Divine, issue number 6. Really enjoying the heck out of this book. If you're sick of these face covers, you still got another 6 issues to go. After they hit the 12 issue mark, then they'll go on to doing some other types of covers. I actually really enjoying this. I think it's going to look cool to be able to span these all out with all these, the pantheon of gods' faces on the covers. Stoked for that. I think it's cool. The introduction of this character, somebody kind of new to us. Drawing a blank on what his name is right offhand. But he's an oracle, makes him really interesting. He doesn't, clearly see exact answers. He sees basically an oracle version of the answer of stuff, and he has seen some visions of what happened to Lucy, what happened to Lucifer, and does not want to go to the other Pantheon members, because clearly the level of power that was used against Lucy probably is potentially a goddess involved. So he turns to who he thinks he can trust, and that would be our Lara, our mortal character who has gone through this entire plotline, who is kind of best friends of Lucy, if Lucy could have a best friend. It's been a month or so after Lucy's demise in this, and we just get to explore some of that. I love the way this book is put together. I think it's smart. It's got these levels of really interesting pop culture to them. I know sometimes it feels slow, but in a way that your brain is always working as it's delivering that. So we get some back history on our Lara character, her deciding what she's going to do next since the whole downfall of Lucy, and it gets us going and sets us up on what's next. That they're going to be doing some investigating as to what happened to Lucy, and she's teamed up with this god who looks like Prince to me. I mean, to me that looks like Prince. Yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I think it's great. I think it's an interesting book. Maybe not for everybody, but I think it's a book you just kind of read, let the whole thing mature in your head, and it just gets better the more you ponder on some of the stuff. And there's a certain smartness to the way it's delivered. I'm doing a horrible job of talking about the book here. But I'm interested to see where the plot line goes. There is a plot here. There is direction to the story, and the characters are all interesting. I continue to love Lara, our mortal character. We kind of being told this story through. She keeps having these encounters with her parents, and you get the kind of teenage encounter that I think we've all experienced at some point or another, where the parent asks you, "How are you?" You can always talk to me if you want to. In your head, you're thinking all this, oh yes, I really want to talk to you, blah, blah, all the things that are wrong, and all that kind of stuff. But the reality of being a teen is you go, and then go on. And that's all kind of delivered in here. That's one of the things I like about the book. I love this mystery that's going on. Is somebody going to replace Lucifer? Is it going to be Lara? I don't know. Typically, it's a lot of years between the gods showing themselves and for the 2 years that they exist before they burn out and then come back again. So who knows? Interesting stuff, though. Speaking of interesting stuff, The Bunker, issue number 8. Our story, great cover, our story continues to be incredibly complex, I think, in the fact that we have people from the future. Not only did they send back all this information to try and sway and control what the current timeline selves are doing, but some of them have slipped back in time themselves and are manipulating stuff. Brady, our character, who up until this point never got a letter, has just been kind of X'd out of some pictures. There's really not a lot of information on him. He gathers some information that's pretty disturbing. and is kind of acting on that information. So here we're starting to get these threads of, you know, you're living your life, you're given all this information from your future self saying you need to do and act in these certain ways, and some of those ways are horrible because it's for the better good of humankind, that if we don't go through with these acts, that actually the human race might be wiped out. So you're kind of compelled to do those things, but at the same time you start thinking, wait a second, these are really horrible stuff. There's got to be another way for me to do this. Now that I've been given the information that something bad is going to happen, there's got to be another way to address it than going through with some of this stuff. And that's all starting to make cracks in, I think, what was supposed to be this master plan to keep things right for this president. And the friendships are incredibly strained. It has to be incredibly weird to be friends with somebody that you're pretty sure in the future actually signs your death warrant to be killed on sight. And to continue to be friends with them, is some of that kind of stuff is just kind of really amazing and really screwed up and makes it a really, really interesting story. Really, really digging that. Oh, speaking of stories I like and effects that kind of mess the book up. Wyches number 3. I really like this issue. I like this issue a lot. Gave us some really interesting stories in here about some weird stuff. There's some abductions going on. The father figure is attacked by somebody and injected with something. We don't know what that is. They seem to know a lot more about the witches and hiding amongst the trees and all that sort of stuff. It's all really interesting and whatnot. The failure here is not in Jock's art. The failure for me is in Hollingsworth's coloring in two instances, in two ways. One, the flashbacks get to be confusing to be for sure that they're flashbacks, because typically in the flashback, you know, it's colored different or drawn different, and neither one of those things happen. So after the first flashback telling us that it was 7 years prior, it's hard to recognize that that's what's happening later on in the book. It's a little more complex to figure that part out. The worst thing, though, is whereas the splattering on this cover look absolutely gorgeous, as it looks like this person is being burnt to death or whatever, there is this splattering on every page of random color, and if it had some sort of a non-random sense to it, I wouldn't have a problem with it so much, but it is literally on every page. In some ways you could say, oh, it's raindrops in certain places. Here, it works really well, those splatters, because they look like raindrops on either our camera lens as we're walking in on them like a movie, or on the windshield. It works fine there. There's a couple other places where the lighting is kind of a golden hue as our father figure is walking through the woods, and it could be light disseminating through the dense canopy of leaves, and it works there, but everywhere else it doesn't make sense. And so it doesn't make sense in these places, because that's me just trying to find an excuse as to why it works that way. That is so distracting, this just thrown across all over without any rhyme or reason, you know, Pollocked all over the pages. Pollock is a modern artist. Look him up if you're interested. All over the pages, it completely took me out of the story, trying to look through this mess that is this splatter of color everywhere. That for I don't understand. There's no artistic reason for it. It almost feels like Hollingsworth, ooh, look what I can do. And so he had some free days, and so did a lot of paint splatters and laid over. In the back of this, in the back matter here, they even have the coloring process, which is great. It's great for people to learn and understand this. If you don't understand how a comic book is made and created in the process, this is great stuff. This is wonderful material you should never have access to. That is fabulous. Didn't really tell me anything I didn't really know, because I've looked up and studied on a lot of how this process is. But it's really cool. But it doesn't explain why he set up this crazy color pattern. How did that inform that page? How did that make that page, what did that inform us? What did that tell us? How did that create the story? How did that drive the story? What did that do? How did that enhance it? I don't see how it did in any way. Am I wrong? Do you like the color? Do you think that coloring was successful? How does that inform that kind of random splatter and stuff? How is that informing the story, or moving it forward, or making it more compelling, making it more interesting, or all the other things that might be a positive to it? What am I missing? Am I missing something? Or do you agree that's just distracting and unnecessary? If you're interested, by the way, Hollingsworth, pretty interesting guy. He is on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, I suggest everybody get Twitter. Even if you don't use it to actually chat with anybody else, it's interesting to see what other people have to say. Hollingsworth is on there. He shows a lot. This is nothing in the back of here. He shows a lot of his process for coloring. And he colors all kinds of books. Not only like this horror thing on Jock, he's been coloring the Matt Fraction, Aja, Hawkeye run. That's a completely different color palette, completely different way of coloring. Interesting to get to see the process and how they go about it. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, check him out. Anyway, love the story. Really interested in where it's going, and all the bump in the night and all that kind of intrigue that's going on there. I am compelled to want to read it for that. But those colors were really, really distracting this time around. Speaking of a book that I don't even know if I can call it distracting, I'm not sure what I can call it. Intersect issue number 2, all done by Ray Fox. I want to like this book. I want to be interested in this book. Well, I am interested in it. I want to like it just because it seems so strange and just off-kilter. But the problem is it's strange and off-kilter in a way that I'm not sure I understand how to consume. Part of me wants to be interested in the book because part of me in my head somewhere is thinking, okay, this is like a smart guy book somewhere. And the challenge is for me to be smart enough to figure out the smart guy book. But part of me is really worried that there really isn't smart guy stuff actually in here. That it is kind of a rambling of sorts. And I'm sure that the Ray Fox is having a great fun time doing this. I would have a fun time doing this if I was doing it. I'm not sure that I would subject anybody else to it, though. I mean, I'm getting some sense of what the idea of the story is. There's something going on. There's some contagion or something. One of our main characters is a person who morphs not only between personalities, one male and one female, the body physically morphs between the two. Another one of the characters in the book is a child, a young boy, who has a face on the back of their head, morphing also. But what this all means, I have no idea, really. We run into kind of a spiritualist of sorts at one point here that kind of gives them the whole find your way kind of a thing. Not sure how much longer I can put up with the book because I'm not sure it's going to turn itself around. I'm not sure at some point it's going to answer something or really become something. Or I don't know that I'm going to have the moment where I go, aha, this is what it's all about. And so how many issues do I read of this before I pull the plug on it? I'm curious, and I'm still thinking there might be something there. So I'm clearly going to pick up a couple more issues because I'm dumb like that. But I mean, I just can't even begin to recommend that book to anybody, even on a curiosity level. So. Good luck with it. What do you? Are you reading it? Did you read issue 2? What do you think's going on there? I would be curious. I don't know really many other people who are actually reading it, so be interesting to see what other people have to say. So, The Kitchen number 2 of 8. I'm really enjoying this. I continue to like Ming Doyle, the artist, is a very good storyteller, so I'm enjoying her work. This is a great Becky Cloonan cover. So our story is these 4 women who have taken over for their husbands as being basically wise guys, as being running the family mafia style type business. And in some ways they take it to the next level. They realize they need to be a little stronger armed, make people understand that they are the bosses and they are not to be messed with. They start acquiring the money. Of course, in the last issue, they had accidentally killed a significant member of another part of a family. They thought they had pretty much kept it hush-hush. Another wise guy figures it out. He starts blackmailing them. He's kind of sleazy also. He's hitting on the women. You get the impression he wants sexual favors along with all this money that they're going to pay him to keep his mouth shut. The woman of the group that you think is the meekest ends up being the one that basically kind of draws down on him to solve their problem. Also, during this whole kind of chaos they have going on with this whole blackmailing thing that they're trying to deal with, one of their husband's kind of partner gunman gets out of prison on some sort of technicality. And the really worst thing is he's a complete and utter psychopath. He is a dangerous, wild gun who tortures and mutilates, and he's basically a serial killer that's working for the family. Is kind of what it seems like. And he is shown back up at the heated moment and exchanges with the guy that's trying to blackmail them. Shows up at that moment. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with this kind of crazy guy. How do they keep him reined in, and what's next to them. If you like things like The Sopranos and other mafia-style type stories, I think you would enjoy this. It is really good along those lines. I'm enjoying it. I was asked in the Comic Book Roundtable, would this, does this feel like it's a TV or movie script? No, I mean, it's a comic book. It functions very well as a comic book, but I can easily see it being turned into those things too. It doesn't feel like this was a TV show or a movie script that they decided to turn into a comic book because they couldn't sell it someplace else. But I could easily see it becoming a TV show just because this genre is really popular. This is a comic book that I would give to somebody that I knew was kind of like, oh, I don't read comics because comics aren't for me. Thinking the whole superhero thing. But I know they like, they like The Sopranos and some of those other, the Goodfellas and some of those other mobster type movies and TV shows. This is that. It's female characters figuring out their own place and how they're going to function in 1970s Boston. And I think it's cool, it's smart, and it works, I think. Drifter issue number 2. Still don't know what I think of this book. I want somebody to help me decide what my opinion is on this book. There's aspects of it I like. I like the artwork. I think it's interesting. The world is somewhat interesting. I'm just not sure I'm invested in this main character for me to be super excited about this book and really intrigued as to where it's going. So that's my dilemma. Is there's interesting world building stuff in here, but I'm not invested in the people. And the world is just a world. So, other people who are reading Drifter, are you enjoying this? If you are, what's cool about it? If you're not enjoying it, what's exactly not working for you? I just think I need to be more informed about this guy that we're supposed to know about, or supposed to care about. I understand to some degree, I don't think he's an amnesiac, but is not very forthcoming. We just get little bits and pieces, and I'm not sure it's enough for me to really be holding on. But I want to like the book. There's something about it that seems really cool, too. Maybe it's the world. Maybe it's wetting the right part of my sci-fi whistle to be interesting as far as that goes. But I know, intellectually, there's some story element issues in it, and I haven't quite pieced those together and enough to 100% justify it in my brain. But something says I don't want to get rid of it either. So, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But still, really, I still think it's, like I said, so interesting. Our character, they get to his crashed ship. The locals are saying there hasn't been a ship crashed in their lifetime, 20 some odd years. He's saying it was just a couple days ago. Doesn't make any sense. They engage with some scavengers, get into a big fight with them. Then we discover the scavengers aren't the real threat in the place. There's a thing called the bear that comes down with this lightning storm, and it's a creature that, it's got 4 legs, it's shaggy, it's got a tentacled head, and it moves as fast as lightning is going along, and pretty much the locals say you're dead if you engage with this thing. They rush back to their city. The city has a protective dome. Protective dome isn't working. Our main character manages to get that dome up and running with the help of a distraction from this guy here, who seems to be potentially a drifter. But this guy here also seems to be the guy that shot our character in the first issue. So how's that all going to play out now with this protective dome, keeping the lightning out, keeping the monster, the bear, out? But what's next? So, oh, just looking to see if I had a drink here because I'm suddenly really thirsty. Annihilator, issue number 4. I've been loving this book. Of course, issue 1 through 3, I've been raving about how Philip K. Dickian this book is. Just has a lot of those elements. Some of those elements slip away in this issue, in that it solidifies, feels more like it's solidified, that this isn't just our main character's space. He's not just, you know, hallucinating and doing all of these things that are happening and doing them while he's in a brain cancer-driven hallucinatory state. Because there are other people here now. His ex-girlfriend is here, and she's seeing the same stuff he's seeing. So clearly it's not that kind of a hallucination. Still a wonderful book, though. Still really intriguing, still really interesting. You know, knowing about Max Nomax, his future version in this prison, what's about to happen. There's some incredibly beautiful art in here of him creating a universe, literally weaving star element and creating a universe, or attempting to, and it folding under its own weight because he's not as good at all of this as he thinks. I think that Fraser Irving's art is so incredibly well done in this book. Tells such a beautiful and intriguing story. You know, we have some great chase scenes in this that are kind of fun. Some great dialogue between the ex-girlfriend and Max Nomax. There's a hint that this ex-girlfriend looks like a dark mirror image of Max Nomax Love, who's in this impenetrable sarcophagus set at the edge of a black hole in the super prison that Max Nomax is in. And then, of course, we have this vanguard of justice that is hunting Max Nomax down, that has taken on the disguise of being Space and the film writer Space, and of course is doing these horrible things. So Space's name is in quite a bunch of trouble in this. So 2 more issues, I think. I'm excited to see where it goes, see what's next. Really, really cool. Really digging it. It's just some fabulous stuff that I'm really excited about. BPRD, Hell on Earth, number 126. If nothing else, it's worth it for this splash page of Mother Russia after they've blown up one of the giant monsters. Just an incredibly awesome page there in Russia with our Russian equivalent to BPRD. Some great stuff that happened there. We have some more elements with the Black Flame and the people who are working for the Black Flame, what they're up to. We also get some winter elements to show us time passing and you know, just how brutal and how bad things can get when you're out hunting monsters in the wilds of America in this new and fractured Earth that is currently in the Magnolia universe. Mike Mignola, of course, has the ideas. John Curtio's doing the character development and plot points and some of the dialogue as far as that goes. James Herron doing the art, and Dave Stewart's, as always, doing the wonderful colors. I mention that because this great book that I'm still really enjoying, those guys, except for Mignola, are on this book. It's written by John Curtio. James Herron is doing the art, and of course, the incredible Dave Stewart on colors. Rumble, issue number 1 from Image Comics. Scarecrow God, I know that from solicitations. Doesn't really inform us of that inside the book, but it is really cool. I love the elements, the art, the beginning 3 or 4 pages, as we're kind of in a desolate kind of thing. There's this abandoned Paul Bunyan land, which is really intriguing and really interesting. And then we end up in this bar with this character who's just broken up with his girlfriend, or the girlfriend's dumped him to go back with the army buddy. He's having a conversation with another guy in the bar who seems to be potentially a voodooist or some other sort of mystic of some sort. He's being kind of a smartass. He's going to leave. As he goes out, he is engaged by this figure that seems to be a main element in in this book, this guy with his giant sword who chases him off into the bar and then ends up getting clocked in the back of the head, falls over and falls apart like a bunch of straw, like a scarecrow. You know, then people start showing up for this supposed magic sword, it seems. These gargoyle-like figures do, as this guy from the bar is trying to sell this thing to make some quick money. Beyond that, we don't really know what the elements are. That's the weak point of this. There's this whole scene in here with this woman and her cat, and the cat falls out the window, and she saves the cat. Have no idea what that element is about at all. It was funny, it was amusing, but it's 2 pages that I'm not sure exactly what we're supposed to do from that. There's some other storytelling elements, as long as we know there's really nothing to invest us in any of these characters other than to find the kind of loser who lost his girlfriend. He's kind of amusing, but I don't know if he's somebody we want to invest time in. For me, the biggest thing is I really love the art. These creators I know are solid creators. They make good and really interesting stuff. John Arcudio has been writing with Mike Mignola basically since almost the beginning of the whole Mignola Hellboy universe, BPRD universe. He wrote a great run on Doom Patrol from around 2001, I think, that I really enjoyed. Kind of an odd set of Doom Patrol that nobody talks about. I really enjoyed his work there. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm interested in it. The elements at the very beginning that had kind of a mystic, apocalyptic tone to them. I'm not sure how much that plays into the rest of it. Exactly what's going. So there's these elements that clearly need to be better adjusted to tie it all in together. But what here is so dynamic and so cool, and the art is so eye-popping in it. And there are elements that all those elements seem really cool. That I want to keep reading. Those elements all seem really cool to me. So the elements are really cool. The art is awesome. I'm going to be buying some more issues to see how it ultimately, you know, ties itself together and is some, you know, see where this adventure is going to be. There's all kinds of interesting stuff going on in it. I just think that it something needs to hook it all together, pull it all together. And for a #1 issue, that part wasn't exactly successful, but all the elements are really cool. You know, the art and all those different elements. So I'm willing to give all those bits and pieces a shot at telling me a story, because it seems really exciting and some really cool stuff going on. And I'm one of those people, sometimes a group of images that aren't tied into a solid cohesive story works just fine for me. I can dig all those bits and pieces. And I can dig all those bits and pieces for a very long time. And then really love them if after 5 or 6 issues, somehow you do it all, knits all together into one really cool thing. Then I'm super excited, and I'm telling you that we've got an awesome story on our hands. And I think that's what will happen with these creators. And I'm willing to give it a shot. Are you? Anyway, that's it for this time around. And I'll see you next week for some more books. Have a great one, everybody.